I have always lived at Boonah. Well, not always, but since primary school, in the small outskirts of town. First of all, we lived at Roadvale, and then we moved to Mount Alfred. Boonah is a small, nestled country town in the scenic rim of Queensland. As I got older, I took a job on a farm. Boonah had a typical small folk town charm. Friendly folks, rolling hills, and nothing but open road for kilometres around. One of the houses that we lived in was outside of town, about 10 to 15 kilometres down a quiet road through patches of bushland and farmland. It was an old Queenslander sitting on a small rise overlooking paddocks on one side and dense trees on the other. The kind of place that looked like it hadn't changed much since the 1950s, even earlier. The first few weeks were uneventful. I spent my days working on the farm and my evenings enjoying the stillness of the countryside. It was peaceful, exactly what I was looking for. But then things started to get strange. One night I was driving home after a late shift. The road leading to my place was blanketed in a thick fog. It was unusual for that time of year, and it gave the whole area an eerie, otherworldly feel. I was driving slowly, barely able to see a few meters in front of me, when I saw someone standing on the side of the road. A woman. She was wearing an old-fashioned dress, the kind that you'd see in photos from the early 1900s, with long sleeves and high collar. I slowed down, thinking maybe she needed help, but as I got closer, I realised she wasn't moving, just standing there staring down the road with her back to me. I called out from the car, but she didn't respond. Something about her made me feel uneasy. Her posture, the way she stood so still, and the fact that she was out there alone in the middle of nowhere on a foggy night. I decided not to stop, and I kept driving, glancing in the rearview mirror. But when I looked back, nothing. She was gone, just like that. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me in the fog. But the image of her standing there so still stuck with me. A few nights later, I was sitting on the veranda enjoying a cold wine when I heard something strange, a soft rustling, like footsteps on gravel coming from the road. At first I thought it was just an animal or maybe the wind, but the sound grew louder, more distinct. It was slow and deliberate, as if someone was walking up the road towards the house. I got up, went to the edge of the veranda and peered down the driveway. There in the moonlight was the same woman I'd seen on the road. She was walking slowly, her feet barely touching the ground, her dress swaying slightly as she moved. She stopped just short of the gate, her head tilted as if she was listening for something. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, but I couldn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off of her. And then she turned and walked back down the road, disappearing into the fog that had crept in again, just like the first time I had seen her. It wasn't until she was completely gone that I realised I had been holding my breath. I didn't sleep much at all that night. The next day, I asked a few of the locals if they knew anything about a woman fitting her description, someone who might have lived in the area years ago. One of the older men at the local pub, we'll call him Jim, gave me a strange look. "You've seen her, haven't you?" he asked, leaning in close. I nodded. He sighed, looking down at his beer before speaking. "That's Martha. She used to live down the road just past your place, in an old homestead that's long gone now. Story goes that her husband died in a riding accident, somewhere out in the bush. She'd wait for him every night, standing at the gate, staring down the road, waiting for him to come home. She never believed he was really gone. Eventually she passed away herself, but folks say she never stopped waiting." Jim, as I called him, took a long swig of his drink and looked at me. "You're not the first to see her. She shows up from time to time, always on the stretch of road looking for him." I didn't know what to say. The image of Martha standing in the fog, waiting, wouldn't leave my mind. Over the next few weeks, the strange occurrences continued. I'd hear footsteps on the gravel, sometimes catching a glimpse of her at the edge of the property, always in the fog or at dusk. She never came too close, but I could feel her presence, the sadness in the air whenever she appeared. Eventually, I decided to move. Boonah was beautiful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the house, or maybe the road itself, was tied to something deeper, something that wouldn't let go. I don't know if Martha ever found the person she was waiting for, but one thing was clear: she was still out there waiting. And every now and then, when I drive through Boonah, I wonder if anyone else has seen her, standing at the edge of the road, lost in time, waiting for a return that would never come.